Welcome back to Dead Good Book Reviews. I'm Judith and you're watching another episode of Overbooked, the series where I talk about every single book on my shelves because why not? Today we are talking about Shelley Parker Chan's She Who Became the Sun. Some quick disclaimers before we start. While I did buy this lovely hardback copy of this book myself with my hard-earned cash, I did have a digital review copy of it. Regardless of where books come from, nobody's paying me to talk about books and all opinions are my own. As always, I'm going to keep this review as spoiler-free as humanly possible. If you do want to go into this book knowing absolutely nothing, please click away now. I'll link the story graph for the book below in case you want to check out any user-generated content warnings. This book initially caught my eye because it was being marketed as Mulan meets the Song of Achilles, and while I hadn't at the time read the Song of Achilles, and after 5 years on the bookish internet I should have known better than to trust book comparisons, I was still very excited. I love that in my notes I've said this book came out in July, not sure when this video will actually go up. It came out in July of 2021. I think if it was July of 2020 I'm going to cry. 2021, thank goodness. It has two covers, in case this doesn't look familiar. The US cover looks like this, and the UK cover looks like this. I'm pretty sure this was Shelley Parker Chan's debut, which is baffling to me that this would be a debut. It doesn't feel like one. It is so good. Not that all debuts are bad, but just, I'm in awe. And just as a note, Shelley Parker Chan uses she, they pronouns, or at least did at the time when I wrote these notes. Shelley Parker Chan is an Asian American former diplomat and international development advisor who spent nearly a decade working on human rights, gender equality, and LGBT rights in Southeast Asia. Named after the Romantic poet, she was raised on a steady diet of Greek myths, Arthurian legend, and Chinese tales of suffering and tragic romance. In 2017, she was ordered an otherwise Tiptree Fellowship for a work of speculative narrative that expands our understanding of gender. She currently lives in Melbourne, Australia with her family. A cool human indeed. Once again, I'm going to go with the pronouns that are in the blurb of the book. Pronouns shift throughout this story, / are a little bit malleable. That I'm just going to go with what's in the blurb and we'll move on from there. It's the only way to do it. Picture the scene. We're in a struck by famine village in China in the 1300s. Two siblings are given their fates. The boy is destined for greatness, the girl is destined for nothing. But when the boy dies, the girl, our main character, says, I'm not having it. I'm taking his destiny for myself. Eventually, through various different things that happen, becomes a monk, does some other things. Shu, our main character, joins the rebellion and ends up fighting the Mongol army, which is a whole thing that is happening during this time. It is the alternate version of the story of the rise to power of the founding emperor of the Ming Dynasty. Honestly, there is so much plot in this book that the idea of getting it succinctly into a short segment at the start of the video is laughable. I've read this book twice now, I think. I initially read it as part of my Book a Day in June reading challenge back when I used to do that in 2021, and since then I read it for a Space Sirens book club, I believe. I was really surprised by how much it stayed with me. It's been one of those books that I really wanted to reread over and over again. It's just about finding the time to do so, and I think that's because there's such a huge narrative. There's so many different things going on. There's quite a lot of history to get to grips with, both real and alternate history, that I think it's really helpful to reread it and to have some time to look things up and such. So it's, in terms of rereadability, a great book. If you're looking to invest in a book that you can pick up more than once, this is a story for you. In some ways, it reminds me of a lot of other books that have been favourites for me, and I think that part of what makes those books special, and this special, is that every time you read it, you can kind of focus on a different element of the story. So for instance, I think the first time I read it, I was very keyed into the romance aspect of the story, where in the second reading, I was much more keyed into more of the gender aspects of the story, and I think that there's something for everyone, maybe not for everyone, for most people, and there's something for you every time you come back to it. You can kind of focus in on a different aspect of the plot. When I initially picked this up, I was a bit worried that I wouldn't cope with the military aspects of the story, just because historically military campaigning, war, fiction hasn't entirely been my thing. I've slightly started to shift in that now. I think having read other things, like most recently I've read Strike the Zither, which is a lot of military strategy, I think that I've come around to it a lot more. And in this book, I think it is actually done very, very well. Again, the multitudes of the story mean you never get bogged down in one particular element, but also because we're seeing so many different sides of the conflict, it keeps it really fresh, and it gives me my favourite thing, which is where I know more than the characters know, because I like to be omniscient. Some books are good because they've got fantastic storytelling. Some books have particularly good prose, some books have particularly good characters. I can't necessarily pin down exactly about this book that is this book is great because it has great X. I think it's really well-rounded. But I think, for me, the main thing that really sold this book to me and that makes me love it is the story and the overarching sweep of the narrative, and it's got me really excited for book 2 just to build on that. I'm hoping it feels like a very continued arc of things. But you get really swept up in what's going to happen and which of these plans are going to bear fruit and so such. I don't know if that would feel different if you're more familiar with this period in Chinese history. For me, it is basically I know nothing, so it was really exciting to be taken on that journey. I don't know if there would be more of a sense of dramatic irony if you had more awareness of this. I genuinely have no idea. Things you might want to consider if you're thinking about picking this up. I don't know if the reason I enjoyed this as a person who doesn't typically enjoy military fantasy would mean that if you are a person who absolutely loves military fantasy all of the time, this wouldn't be for you because it must be different for me to have enjoyed it. I don't know, that's a convoluted way of thinking about it, but sometimes I worry that if I'm like, this is military fantasy, but good, all the people who like it for the reasons I don't like it will say, well, no, because it doesn't do the things I want. Reviewing books is hard. And also, obviously, if you want a book where you're going to get everything on just the first read, I actually think this is a book that warrants a reread or two. Just for me personally, perhaps. But maybe for you as well. I think that I got more out of it on a second read. I definitely engaged more with the material on a second read. Who's to say if that was just that I was reading it when I was reading a book every day for a month in the past? Perhaps that had an impact. But also there are so many things going on in this that you probably do want a reread or two planned out in the grand scheme of your future. I will be rereading it before the second book comes out. Other things you might want to read if you've read this or if you're looking for similar things. The Sapphic Trifecta always comes to mind. That was She Who Became the Sun, The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke, and The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. I've read the sequel to The Jasmine Throne and it is absolutely fantastic, The Oleander Sword, so that I would highly recommend. Just for Sapphic books that came out around about the same time. It was a wonderful time in our history. The only other alternate history book that I've really read is the alternate Vlad the Impaler, which is the Conqueror's Saga by Kirsten White. I haven't reread that in many years, and I'm slightly concerned that I won't love it as much, so I don't recommend it as much at the moment until I've got round to doing a reread, but it is one of my favourites. And for the kind of like emotions and anger and plans that take a long time to topple through and pay off, I wanted to recommend The City of Brass, the David Bad trilogy, which is just a wonderful series, and I haven't recommended it in at least a month, so I thought it was about time. I highly recommend that you read this. I thought it was fantastic, that's why I ended up buying myself a copy. I'm trying to buy copies of the books that I have as review copies that I absolutely love so that I can yell about them to you even if it takes me over a year to actually make the video. It's fine. If you enjoy these themes, if you enjoy these ideas, if you want a really good story, I think this is a book you'll definitely have a good time with. Have you read this? Do you have plans to? What of the Sapphic Trifecta is your favourite? I think at the moment The Jasmine Throne is winning for me, but that might also be because it's the one I've read the most recently. How long is the longest it should take me to make a video? Is a year too long? I don't think we need the answer to that question, but pop it in the comments below anyway. While you're down there commenting, if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It makes me feel loved and appreciated. You can also follow me on social media. Come hang out on Discord where we have chill chats about books. Nothing makes me feel more loved and appreciated than my patrons over on Patreon who support the channel and get early access to videos and bonus content. If you would like to join their number, that's linked below as well. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one. There's gonna be some bloopers now. Thank you so much for watching. That's all from me, and I will see you in the next one.